Natasha, it looks like we've got the meeting being recorded again, so that's great. I appreciate that. And we have tried to make these meetings available and continue to make them available in the archives of the CYEP page for people that miss them so that they can go back and catch up, or if they're new to a particular organization, we want to make sure that they've got these out there to be able to view as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Natasha, I just wanted to say welcome back as well. That we miss you when you're not around, but Cody was great last week and had some great information to share, as well as Dee. She was helpful. So, but we're glad to have you back in the driver's seat for our weekly technical assistance webinars.
Great, thanks. Were there anything updates that we needed to cover before we jump into the tools, or?
Well, let me just say too that we are working really hard. A lot of this again doesn't necessarily affect program staff, but just to kind of give you a heads up that we have started to publish a few of the CYEP contracts. The way that we publish those contracts, there's kind of a process of things that have to go in order. The first step really is to be able to get your budget worked out and approved, and that's happened, I know, for several organizations. And then we published those contracts, but we publish them as we get them approved, so they don't all get published at one time. And so I wanted to give you a heads up. If you are in touch with other CYEP agencies and somebody says, well, hey, our contract's been published, and you're thinking, well, why hasn't my contract been published? You know, if you're wondering that, don't be concerned that we are working on them. All right?
All right, thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of updates that Cody has just pushed out to test, and he's going to be pushing that out to production so that you can take a look at those updates. And so I'm going to go ahead. If you haven't checked in, then actually I'll just move this over here, and that way you can continue to check in. But I want to be able to make my screen larger. Hold on. You can just scroll down and check in. But I am logged in to test right now, and I am part of my community youth employment program in my group, my list of customers. And I have my Natasha CYEP person that I've been using lately as the demo, where we have the ISTEP, and we have some information available for this person. Computer, there we go. And so Cody has been making updates to the performance measure deliverables section. And what we wanted to do is, there's some more text that'll go up here just to show, clarify that these areas impact the periodic performance report. And we wanted to add in these little tabs, or not really tabs, but headings, so you know where they impact, which tab in the PPR that impacts. So for the most part, these are all automatically populated based on, NOCTA results, Employment 101 results. There are a couple of areas that you would need to complete, and those areas would be just to say that verified that this person has completed the 0 out of 8 items. I know there's one section, and I can show you a little bit later on the Employment 101 plan in production, where a person has asked, well, I can't update the SMART plan or the goals, I can't remember. And you can do it. I do have an area for an update when we update Employment 101 to add a button for that section, but I'll show you how to do that if you're one of those people that have come across that situation. But the point is that you can see how many items they said that they've completed. You can click on the Employment 101 guide to see if they have information saved in their guide, and then you can just simply click Verified. And this is what's going to be impacting your, it's going to be looking for this information for your periodic performance report. The other area that you would have to complete on the progress page would be the area for improved educational outcomes. So you can just select these, as you go along. You can continue to update this information. The new area that's been added is case closure. And so I'm just going to, at this point in time, I'm just going to show you where it is. It's on the progress page under the performance measure area. It's called case closure. So you can see what the condition is for this person, what their status is based on what information is included in the system. And then you'll see you can choose to end the youth participation. We're going to go over all these details, but I'm going to use the instructions as opposed to this section because I just want you to be able to see that the system is automatically going to populate these areas based on the information that's in the system, but there's different situations or various scenarios that can impact the 1 and 2 on here that you're looking at right on the screen. Before I confuse you anymore, I want to go ahead and pull up the instructions. I've updated these instructions. They're out on the partner page, and they're with the documenting CYEP customer progress. So the 2 areas that have been updated is the performance measure deliverable section and then case closure. So, and Aaron, jump in at any time if I, to help clarify this for those that are listening. But with case closure, the 2 things we're really looking at is their eligibility end date, how long, are they still eligible to participate, and then the final follow-up date. And so those are 2 conditions or 2 areas that are looking at whenever to consider when you're closing the case. So
yeah, let me jump in there too and just say, so this is the idea when it comes to CYEP. We've tried to stress this before, but CYEP is designed primarily to be a short-term support for youth who are looking to get jobs. Again, not designed to serve these youth in their quest for employment in the long term. It's designed to help expose them to the possibilities of long term and to begin to get them thinking and planning towards the long term, but the actual program is just for the short term. The idea is to take people who desperately need jobs and get them jobs so that they can begin earning an income, plus any employment, whether it's low-wage, low-skill employment, or whether it's something that's on a career path towards something of maybe more significance. Any employment we consider is good for these youth because, 1, it teaches the value of work, it helps build some basic skills, but also it helps build a kind of a resume, an employment portfolio that they can begin to work off of, so that the next time they go to get a job and somebody asks, what's your employment history like, the youth won't have to say, nothing, I haven't done anything. The youth will have some prior employment that they can build on. So CYEP is supposed to be short-term. With that in mind, the idea of many of our supports is to get youth started in employment. Again, not to carry them forever, but to start them in employment with the hope that once they get a job, it will be easier for them to get future jobs, to get better jobs, but then they will also start to have the resources and the income to begin to take care of some of the things that we're going to provide for them. So for example, we can provide transportation assistance for a while. We can't provide it forever. We can provide a subsidized wage for a while, but not forever. It's the same with child care and clothing and many of the things that we provide for our youth employees to get them started, we can do. The idea is that hopefully once they begin to earn a paycheck on a regular basis, they can take those funds that they've started to earn and begin to take care of those resources and those needs for themselves. That's the hope. So we do have kind of a time limitation to serving youth in the CYEP program, and the time limitation is going to be based on whether or not the youth are in school or out of school. And if they are out of school youth, then our time limitation is 9 months. Okay, we want these youth to be served for 9 months. And hopefully within that 9 months, you should be able to get those youth a job. You should be able to get them the training that they need to get started in some basic employment. Again, we're not training these people, these youth participants that we're serving in the program. We're not giving them, 4 years of college and a professional graduate degree. We are giving them the basic skills that they need to start some initial employment, and while exposing them to the things that are out there for long-term improved employment. So we want to accomplish that in 9 months and help transition that youth to self-sufficiency after that. It is different if the youth is an in-school youth. You will be able to serve that youth longer if the youth is an in-school youth. And you see there, it's 9 months from the enrollment date or the GED or high school diploma earned date. So if you've been serving youth and the youth is 16 years old and the youth is going to be in school for a while, you can continue to serve that youth while the youth is in school, essentially indefinitely while the youth is in school. However, once the youth completes high school, you've got 9 months beyond that date. That's when that 9-month clock will start, and you've got 9 months to continue to work with this youth. The idea is we don't want, in many circumstances, we don't want the same youth in the program year in and year out, because that does not demonstrate progress. It doesn't demonstrate that the youth is improving in their ability to find their own work and to manage their own resources. So, but while they're in school, again, we will give you additional time. So Natasha and I have kind of designed the system to consider those facts. When we talk about case closure and we talk about wrapping up a youth's case in the system, we've got some timelines built in there when we want you to do that. So if the youth, again, is in school, you've got additional time. But if the youth is out of school or transitions from in school to out of school, you've got 9 months. Okay?
Okay, thank you. So the system's going to look to see if they have the into high school status or the out of school or in college status. Got some typos here, but and then it's going to default to go from 9 months from the enrollment date, or we have the GED, high school diploma, earned date. So we've added the feature into ISTEP where you can enter in the credential. So we needed a way to be able to capture the GED or high school diploma, high school equivalency earn date, and so that's how we're capturing that information. So when it's projecting the participation end date, it's going to either make that projection based on the enrollment date or the earn date. And the way you get the earned date in there is that it needs to be in the ISTEP. And there's a credential, like we can go over that, but you can go to that step and then click on the credential and enter credentials that the person has earned as part of being part of the program. Okay, so then it has this case closure occurs when final follow-up is complete, and it's past the participation end date. So if they're still in high school, the projected closure is going to be unknown because there's no time limit while they're in high school. If they're out of school, and you can see they're currently employed with the CYEP, you're going to see that it's going to tell you what the current job placement start date is, and then when the last when it's projected for the 270 days. Okay, so it's going to look at the 270 days, or you're going to have the participation date. So if the participation date is greater than the 270 days because maybe they were in high school, so it gave you some more time, then it will have that projected date. We also have a section for if they're not employed, but they're still eligible for services. So let's say that the person started one of their jobs and then, it just wasn't a good match. And so you're working on placing them with a different employer. Then it would say that they're not employed and making the assumption that they're still working towards the CYEP employment placement and they're still eligible for services. So in that case, the projected end date would be unknown because we don't know what that 270 days is. And then at any time, you can also, let's say, select there's a button here. You can see it says End Youth Participation. And then we have 3 reasons listed. So the youth is not placed with an employer, and they're not working towards employment. So they're just basically, dropping out, I guess. You can choose that option. The other one is if you're unable to verify the employment, can't get a hold of them, the employer, you just kind of don't know where they are, then you can select that option. The other option is youth is employed and the follow-up is complete. The one key thing about this item is that you need to go in and if you go to select this item and it doesn't let you, just note that you just need to show do the check mark that the 270-day follow-up was complete. And then you can select that option. I did see, Aaron, that Jay had a question because I thought one of the go ahead.
Let me stress that he thought one of the out-of-school measures was 1 year. Not that I see anywhere, Jay. If you see something I'm missing, let me know. But I took a look. We don't even have. I guess we've got some that are specific. We have some out-of-school performance measures that are specifically related to out of school. So for example, if they're out of school and they haven't completed a high school diploma or GED, we want them to re-engage in education. And so we have a couple of those, but nothing specifically to a 1 year time frame. Some people ask too, they say, well, what about the follow-up? So for example, if they're in the program for, they've in the program and they've been in there 6 months and we just placed them in a job after 6 months, how is it that you want us to do 9-month follow-up after that? Well, because that will transcend multiple fiscal years, that comes to 15 months, and so it's going to overlap fiscal years. We want you to make every effort, as long as you're CYEP grantee, that any youth that you've placed, that you continue to monitor their employment progress up to 9 months. If you check and you're following up with them and you've done the follow-up and they're not employed, then that may be all that you can do there. But ideally, you'll follow up with the youth. They'll be employed. You will mark that they're still employed and that you're your work continues on as far as the follow-up beyond when you may be doing other work with youth. So maybe all of the youth supports have ended, and all of the any subsidized employment, the youth is on their own, but we still want you to check with the employer or the youth and try to get some confirmation that the youth still has a job after 9 months. And 9 months is as far out as we go on that. Beyond that, we consider it, that you've achieved that performance measure. We don't expect you to track these youth for 20 years, but we do expect you to track the youth's progress in the job, because we considered 9 months to be kind of if the youth have made it that far, then there's an excellent chance that they're going to continue to be employed beyond that time frame. So that's why we set that particular date. We want to know if the youth is still employed up to that period. Okay?
Okay. Any questions, any additional questions? It takes, it takes a little time to think about this. At least it did for me, to kind of take it and let it soak in. So if you have any questions afterwards, just let us know. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you is that the ISTEP area. I had mentioned that you can add credentials to in the ISTEP. So I'm making the assumption I have a ISTEP started for this person, which means I've already done the initial assessment, put together a summary. I went ahead and I've already set the goals, worked with the customer to set the goals, and then also with building a plan means start adding those different steps of those services. And then I can access that information from any of these tabs, or I can look at this overall page and I can see an overview of everything and the different accomplishments and so forth. And then as I go down here further, I can see the goal, and show and hide related steps. I can click on any of like the not started to update the goal. I can click on these to update any of these steps. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of these just to show you. We have, you can update the status at any time, service provider, dollar value, and one thing here is we have the earned credential. So this is a new one. You can either, I don't really think it's going to be applicable to this program, but possibly. You can add a credential from the credential registry, or you can just add a credential. So maybe it's, let's see, your like GED. You can put in the name, the credentialing source, date attained, where it was earned from, the description, and hit save. And now you can see that the credential is added.
Natasha, there's a question from Jay as a follow-up
Okay.
to the
Yeah,
9-month item.
I'm following up on that question too. Sorry, and I'll make sure we get to those. I just I didn't want to cut you off in the middle of something, but to follow up there. So if a client's enrolled in the program but decided not to actively participate, but later wanted to reengage, so they get 9 months from the reengage date. So this is something of a judgment call from the provider here that and we can make sure that if the system doesn't allow this, we'll we'll make sure that we build in some sort of functionality for this. But you know, it's a judgment call in that we don't want somebody to abuse the CYEP program. That in other words, if they sign up repeatedly and they say, hey, I want a job and I'm going to participate in these things, and then they don't actively participate, well, then we do not want to keep re-enrolling those individuals in the CYEP program because it's just not a good fit for them. However, if it happened once and you want to choose to re-enroll that youth a second time, maybe the first time there was something going on and now they have decided to re-engage, then yes, you can continue to serve that youth for 9 months. Natasha, I may have to work with you on making sure that we consider that somehow, if it's that we consider the youth a new enrollment as opposed to like a re-enrollment or something, but I'll make a note of that to follow up with you. The other thing is that's asked is also if a client works the program, does all the assessments and training, but then accepts a position outside of a CYEP partner, how do we track that youth? So that's really tough for us. And we've had this discussion both internally here at DHS and I've had it with several providers, that we talked about the importance of making a CYEP job placement and how it differs from a youth's self-placement on the job. So a couple of things. We never want to hold the youth back. If the youth is able to go out and get a job on his or her own, that's a good thing. In fact, that's the entire point of the CYEP program. We don't consider that, though, a job placement that came about as a result of the CYEP program. In other words, we didn't take and put that youth in a job. That youth is basically ceasing participation in the CYEP program in order to go out and get this job, because if we are going to place the youth in a job, we have rules about how that has to be done as part of the program. And those rules are, I know, sometimes cumbersome, but they're designed to keep youth safe and they're designed to protect the integrity of the program. And so we expect youth to participate as part of that, that they're going to participate with our job placement, and you know, they're going to work within that job placement. However, if they go out and get a job on their own, we don't consider that a failure of the CYEP program, that the youth has obviously achieved enough to be able to do that work, but we would not then continue to support the youth as part of the program. In other words, getting the benefits of the CYEP program come with a commitment from the youth to participate in all aspects of the CYEP program. And so, you know, we would not then consider that necessarily a successful CYEP job placement. You could still note those things in narratives on reports, but again, we don't want to necessarily discourage that with youth, but at the same time, we do want to encourage youth from the outset that when they join the Community Youth Employment Program, there are some obligations, and the idea is that the obligations are for the youth's benefit, that they're going to come and we're going to be able to work with them. They're going to complete all the required steps as part of the program, and as a result of doing all those things that are required of them, they're going to benefit from the resources that we have available to help them. And so, and Natasha, you've got some options there when it comes to case closure, for example, like, you know, providers unable to verify employment. If you can't track the youth through the course of their employment, you may have to close their case because the youth has quit early. They've quit your placement early, or they never accepted a CYEP placement. And if that happens, then that's how we would mark that. Again, we want to, as much as possible, track those things, but it may not be possible after a certain period of time, depending on the youth's decision. And ultimately, the youth is free to do whatever the youth wants to do.
So in that situation, probably the selection of providers unable to verify employment would be the appropriate option?
Yes, if they are not verifying the employment through a CYEP job placement, then that's correct.
Alrighty. And okay, are there any other questions related to case closure? Okay. I'm going to go over to another screen here. Let me get it up real quick if I can. And which tab I put it on. Two things. First of all, I will go to, actually I'm just going to go into Employment 101. This came up, one person contacted me about the Employment 101, and one of the views that you get is mainly from this plan page, and we usually have these edit buttons here, and they take you to the areas within Employment 101. But you notice, like on the Smart Plan, it doesn't have this little edit button. We're going to be updating Employment 101, so we'll update it at that time. So one of the things that I wanted to just show you is that, for any of these areas as you go through, you can you can update the information. You can always update the information in each of these sections. So you're in this, there's a job search plan area, so you know that you can, this has the edit button. I guess I shouldn't start here, but with achieving your goals, for each of these, you can take notes. And so if you wanted to update the information, you can update each of these by just going into the main area. Okay? Does that help people? Here's your Smart Plan. I started at the wrong spot, but there you go. That was one question that had come up. And then let me go to my partner tools. One of the updates that I want to make sure that everyone knows about and is looking at, and also you heard Dee talking earlier, Dee Reinhardt, so you'll be hearing her name and hearing her more often, but she works with us on many projects, and we're very lucky to have her. And I've asked her to, take a look at just the status of everyone and the CYEP reporting, which we'll be updating this to be called the Periodic Performance Report. But there have been some updates to the Periodic Performance Report, and I just want to make sure that everybody is looking at these numbers and making sure that they are adding up, look right for what you would expect. One of the things that just know that if it's red, it just means that we expect the number to be higher to meet what's up with the goal, with the criteria for the goal. So some would say like 100% is the goal and 90% is acceptable. Those would be in the yellow. And then once you have met the goal, then the line turns green. So ultimately, you won't end up meeting your overall end goal until most likely the end of the fourth quarter. Okay. So for each of these items, you can take a look at it. We try to put some information bubbles about the job placements, where information is coming from, so that you can take a look at those. I mentioned before that we have the progress page that talks about the PPR tabs. This is what I'm talking about. So we have the assessment tab, ISTEP tab, all those items that are also on your progress page. And when I say they impact the PPR report, this is the report that I'm talking about. Okay. All right. Those are the updates that I have for now. Any other questions on any other areas or topics? If you haven't already, you can go ahead and check in and move this so you can see it a little bit better. We have a person typing. Okay. We have one person typing is the answer to that question. Other than that, that's the information that we have for today. You can stick around and listen to the conversation, see what comes up. Other than that, you're welcome to carry on with your day. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Have a good afternoon.
Yep. Okay. And then so the question, do we still have to continue sending this report, or can it be retrieved from the database? And then Aaron.
Yeah, what will have happen? I'm gonna provide some follow up on that shortly. Okay, so I will promise I will get that information to you. What is likely to be the case is that the report